All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. For those of us that are morning people, I'm not, but I'm glad to be here. Honored to be able to talk to you this morning. Let me see about getting this in the present mode. There we go. You don't know if there's a... Is it just by the keyboard? I guess it is.
I think
okay.
so for right
All right.
now.
Very
yes.
good. Very good. I like to talk about the class from which my presentations come from. I'm an alumnus of the MLS program at SMU here. The context, I think, is important to talk about first. I'm going to give you maybe a minute of the class first. This is Ethical Implications in Children's Literature. We looked at fairy tales, first and foremost. Boy, what an eye-opener that was. Demeaning to women. That was a shock to me, and there were only 6 of us in the class. Wonderful class. 6 total students, myself and 5 women, and total shock to us as we looked at fairy tales. Short stories, novels, Charlotte's Web. I talked about Charlotte's Web last year at Rice. I absolutely loved analyzing that book. And then picture books was my favorite category. We analyzed 58 total picture books. I analyzed 28 as part of this presentation and paper, and we looked at 30 additional picture books. To give you a picture of the divorce picture, in America, first-time marriages, it's a flip of the coin. It gets a little better as you go around the world. I was part of this statistic. I am a child of divorce. I did manage to find the oldest picture book about this subject was from 1977, right in that category. And 1.5 million children 18 or younger are affected by divorce. I tried to go and find somebody who had already done this, analyze picture books that were specific to helping children of divorce. Couldn't find anything. But that was okay, because I am the expert. I was a child of divorce. I was 11 when my parents divorced. I was very cognizant of everything within earshot and eyeshot that was going on. So it didn't bother me not to find anything on that. But I did find some academic support in the area of bibliotherapy. The Early Childhood Education Journal had Smith and Kramer referred to this as book matching. Helps children get in touch with feelings of fear, guilt, or shame. Provides an avenue for the release of pent-up emotions. And then Wyman Moe actually talks specifically about picture books in this realm. The importance is because of divorces occurring in the first 10 years of marriage. They're vulnerable to feelings of loss and rejection, and they have less cognitive control of the complexities of feelings. And they don't have the vocabulary to express themselves. This was my thesis. Now, in a class of only 6 students, there's a lot of latitude. This thesis didn't appear to the bottom of the 3rd page of a 30-page expose on 16 books. I'm going to go through 8 today. I whittled it down and dusted off this, and I realized I can do a better job. When you dust things off and look at them 6 years later, you can do a much better job, and I'm hoping to do that today. The issues during divorce. Top of the list for me is loss of confidence. That's what happened to me. I lost a lot of confidence as a child. When my parents divorced, I got it back in a year or so, but for about a year, I wasn't the same person. I'm not going to read all of these, just give you the picture. Lots of reasons for the need for picture books. General observations, they weren't multinational, mostly Caucasian middle-class families. These books are about one-sided custody, the mother, usually, a dual announcement to the child. There was some religious infusing, which I'll touch on briefly, and parent proximity. Very young audience, mostly. Not anything in the young adult area. And the storylines portray the relationship between the child and the parents. And some domestic issues are touched upon. The roles, mostly, or some books portray the roles through animals, emotions through animals. You'll find glossaries, appendices, footnotes to adults, footnotes to children, and even some indexing in these books. Some self-illustration was in one book. I'm going to flip through these a little bit quick. I want to get to as many concepts as possible. This is Bears, not surprising, portraying the roles through animals, addresses guilt and fault, storybook, guidebook hybrid, a very young audience. We have footnotes to parents. This was unique because it offered the sale of a teddy bear for the child. I didn't see that anywhere else. Same technique here, just using foxes. Very young audience. This had footnotes to children, which was unique. And indexes are rare. Glossaries and clinical guides, very normal, but indexes were very rare. I didn't see that in any other book. Dinosaurs, not surprising also. This was a comic book format. This shows the contents in a glossary in front. That was a nice feature. The comic book format, even a mention of alcoholism here. The best in show in the animals books, I thought, was this book. This portrays a young girl's emotions through individual animals. This is a very powerful, accurate scene. It's when the parents announce the divorce. I related to that very well. Here we have seeking power to stop the fighting through the elephant, running away from the problem, seeking armor, anger, sadness or depression, and being scared or frustrated. And we have the title of the book here in very big, bold letters. Affirmation of parents' love and presence. The desire to escape the problem. Now this was a dual use here of the bird, because the parents affirmed here they would go find the child and bring the child back home. And then another affirmation of love through the bears. This was an appendices from a PhD. That was unique also. This was a special book for me because I got to trade emails with the author of this book. This is based on an actual incident. Her child is a child of divorce. She, the author, is not a child of divorce. I thought this was an amazing book to be so successful. It was published by the first publisher she sent this to. It is addressing long-distance parent, which was unique. It addresses an African-American girl. That was unique and what I found. Broken promises. A picture book with themed color. That was not unique. And the father is never depicted here, unless you count just that little picture there on the heart box. The blue was themed throughout. That was really nice. I theorized in the paper that it was akin to the musical blues genre. The book is bookended with the phrase, "Good night, Daddy." Here she speaks to her father through the stars and says, "Good night, Daddy," in hopes of seeing the father the next morning. She assumes she will. But he doesn't arrive. And you can see in this illustration, her face says what the conversation is. You don't have to hear anything. All you have to do is look at her face to know he's not showing up. Here we have self-assurance, more self-assurance. She realizes she has family, a very supportive family she can turn to. And the book closes with her saying, "Good night, Daddy." And I theorized in the paper that this was her saying, "I may see you. I don't know exactly when, but until I do, I'm fine." This was a unique book in that it showed text editing by the child as the story progressed. Here we see an example, the first example of text self-editing by the child. This creates ambiguity between the homes. She changes the location of where the father and the mother live because she wants one home, not two. The gray in the depictions also support the ambiguity. We don't know where the mother and father live. Not by this, you can't tell, because she edited it the way she wanted to. And this continues until we finally see the editing to stop as she goes towards reconciliation. We do this with Daddy, we do this with Mommy. And again, here we see that. This closing spread was what I theorized in the paper as being an homage to Syndax, Where the Wild Things Are, which is a very famous Caldecott winning book. And I'll run you through this really quick for those of you who don't know the story. Max is the character. He goes through a dream journey to address his problems, depicted by these monstrous half-humans. And when he returns home from his dream journey to his bedroom, his dinner is waiting for him, and Syndax makes you turn the page after all these grand illustrations, and you see these 5 words, powerful 5 words. That's a whole other presentation. And that's what I theorized. Let me just run back here. That's what I theorized was happening here. Just not together. This book had some unique things. It's consoling a child through a stuffed animal. It has religious infusion, and it is a portrayal of premature aging. Here she says she doesn't like doing grown-up things, but she's okay. The infusion of religion here, I don't have a problem with that. The only problem that I found for me, and I theorized in the paper, was an ethical implication, possibly, is if this book is presented to 3, 4, 5-year-olds, very young children, who don't understand the concept of God, right? Who is God? God could be a guy down the street. Great. Can God come and make my family whole again? That could be problematic. In the category of 2 of, I found several books where they were saying, we now have 2 of everything. I thought this was best of class. It has an unusual unwedding storyline, more mature audience, it's a British publication, a humorous approach to divorce, it empowers children, it offers escapism for children. Here we see Demetrius and Paula holding the knife like a bride and groom, cutting their parents' wedding cake in half. This is a spectacular spread. Why? Because out of 28 books that I analyzed, the typical story was, my mom lives here, I live with my mom, Dad lives across town, I see Dad on Saturdays, turn the page, maybe we get to see the problems, maybe not. This puts the problems in front of the child, the whole laundry list right here. It also depicts opulence, which I theorized was kind of a fairy tale approach. Laundry list plus opulence plus humorous approach, I theorized was a fairy tale escapism in the realm of looking at divorce for children. Okay if this is used in conjunction with books that more closely resemble a child's reality. Caricature-like illustrative style was unique. We show the distance at the dinner table here. The uglying of the parents illustrated. That is very real. Here we see some of the British humor, concrete bath and the fireworks, and most importantly, the unamused children. Here they are seeking, they have problem parents and they're seeking help from their peers. The unwedding proposal by the children, again, the children are empowered here. And I theorized the cake was more of a dead cake. It's an ash funeral gray. The unwedding ceremony, because together they have misery. The opening spread, that we remember, was showing all the problems in this grand house. Well, children, their way of starting new is just to demolish the whole thing. I thought that was a great illustration. Here we see the 2 houses, 2 of, Mom and Dad, the passage from each, only wide enough for the children. Again, empowering the children, visitation controlled by the children. In the fairy tale genre with the castle is illustrated. They celebrate happily ever after apart. This was a special book for me because I liked the illustrative approach. It was really one big long poem, textual rhyming, that was unique. Another British publication. It shows the child's world broken, which is a nice visual for young children. Guilt and fault are addressed. Isolation, denial, and supportive fears. Even the glue shop and the glue inside are broken. That's how broken a child's world can be. This was unique, a non-parent adult offering guidance and enlightenment. And here we see self-affirmation, restoration of confidence, affirmation of parental love, and then enlightenment and restoration of confidence as he says goodbye to the adhesives and so much more. And of course the glue is not for the parents, the glue is for the child. The world now glued together, but I theorize this might be a little too easy for children, but the final sentence reminds us there is no glue for heart, so that means we have work still to do, right? So, anything we want to talk about? I have the books here, by the way, if anybody wants to actually view any of them. Yes?
I was wondering if in your research you found books with more than one child.
I did, yes. I didn't feel like they were written well enough or illustrated well enough to make the cut for the paper. The paper, actually, I profiled 16 books, and I whittled those down to just these 8. But yes, there are some with multiple children in there. Yes.
I was just wondering if that last book you said you thought was too easy for children. Could you expand on that a little bit? Like, what you...
Well, sure. The reason I said that is because it might give the impression that a bottle of glue is all you need.
Oh, okay.
You know, and I was just thinking very literally, you know, like, Mom, can you just go to the store and get some glue and let's just get this taken care of. But I think the parents, you know, that's up to the parents to make sure that that's not read that way. So. Yes?
As a child of divorce yourself, which book resonated emotionally most with you?
This last one.
This last one?
Yeah, because the very last, what he gets to is a restoration of confidence, and it's very prominent in this book. That was really, really special for me personally, yeah. Yes, sir.
What did you see with socioeconomic status here? Because I've seen the opulence of the one family, the pretty much middle class. Do you see much with children of poverty that seem to have greater, incidences of divorce? Were there any that dealt with, being in a financially struggling household and stuff like that, and those issues?
That's a great point. I did not find that depicted in any of the books. That would be a great subtopic to have added to my analysis. Yeah, the fact that I didn't find any. I think the lack of just volume. I went out to Amazon and I literally ordered every book I could find on the subject, a picture book dealing with divorce, and I looked at 28 of them, and socioeconomic issues just were not depicted. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't even realize that until you just said that. Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, ma'am.
You looked at books starting, you said the first one you started in the 1970s and then progressing to today. Did you notice a significant change over time, and any of the aspects you talked about, like the animals being portrayed instead of people, how it was handled in the picture books?
I found them to get more sophisticated. Like going from 1977, this is a very basically written book and illustration, all the way to something as elaborate as these two. Yeah, there's a big difference. These are from the about 15 years ago. And yeah, it was a huge leap from this to having something that would really be really pleasing to the eye of the child and actually draw the child into the book. I didn't find that this drew the child into the book very well. Yes?
If you were to walk into a Barnes & Noble today, would you find these books incorporated into the children's section, or do you have to go to like a niche area of the store to find books that have kind of, you know, the glossaries and like the notes from PhDs, or are they starting to be more like a kid could just select it from the options?
That is a great point. I did not even think about that. I was, this class, we were kind of pressed for time. We got to the final project very late. So because of Amazon, I was able to, you know, in warped time, get all these books to me really quickly. I didn't even think about going to Barnes & Noble. That's a great question. That would be really interesting. I think I might go to Barnes & Noble this afternoon, literally, and do that. Yeah, that's a great question.
One last question. Go ahead.
You mentioned corresponding with one author who was
Yes.
not a child of divorce. Did she say what her motivation was for spending all this time on this project?
My apologies. I should have elaborated on that. Her daughter, if you remember, her daughter has a happy face on her shirt. Her daughter was supposed to see her father when they were visiting a distance. They were taking a trip to another city. She was supposed to visit the father. The father canceled, and so that seed became the creative seed, the creative seed for the whole book. So, what I did was I took this book and a couple of others into my capstone project 6 years later, and I was corresponding with her about her creative process. My capstone project was about the creative process behind things that are written for children. So that's when she told me the inside story, yeah.
Let's give John a hand.